Namaskar. We are living in highly volatile times. South Asia is not immune to the effects of global power politics, and for various reasons, the region is troubled by internal discord, political, economic, and security related. In this podcast, we will discuss some issues concerning India's neighbors. We are honored to have Ambassador Shyam Saran to explore these topics. The ambassador is one of India's most respected voices on global and regional affairs. He has served as India's Foreign Secretary. He is a recipient of the Padma Bhushan, and at present, he is the president of the India International Centre. Thank you, Ambassador, for accepting our invite. We are indeed very grateful. Let me begin first with a country with which we've had very close ties for many years, Bangladesh. And those ties now are beginning to fray. So what are the key drivers of Bangladesh's current political and social economic situation? And how might these developments influence its domestic stability as well as India's security, trade and the broader regional dynamics in South Asia, especially when we are looking at big power rivalry now taking place in the Bay of Bengal, both with the United States and China?
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you on what are obviously very, very important topics for India's foreign policy. So with respect to Bangladesh, as you said, we had a very good run in a sense with Sheikh Hasina being in power. People sometimes complain that we put all our eggs in one basket and we should have reached out to other political forces in Bangladesh. I think they neglect the fact that some very major positive developments took place during the past 15 years or so. We resolved the border issue, which was pending for a very long time. We managed to get a agreement, not 100%, but substantially on the sharing of river waters. We were able to establish very strong cross-border connections with Bangladesh, including the revival of what used to be the lifeline for the northeast of the subcontinent, which is river transportation. We became a major power source for Bangladesh's industry. Without the supply of electric power from India to Bangladesh, their textile industry would not have progressed as much as did. We became a very big market for Bangladesh's products, including textiles, which is their major export. So all in all, if you look at the developments which took place, and I'm not even mentioning the security aspect, that the sanctuaries which many of the insurgent groups used to have in Bangladesh, that came to an end. So there were major gains made by India. So for anybody to say that, we did not quite play this game right, I don't agree with that. When an opportunity was offered, we made full use of that opportunity. And even if the political pendulum swings to one side, and we have to cope with the consequences of that, the pendulum can also swing to the other side. And we should be ready for that change. So we should not get too panicky about what situation has emerged. We should try and deal with it as best as we can. One of the things which I would like to mention is, in terms of looking at the situation in Bangladesh, you must not forget the history. Don't forget that even when Bangladesh emerged as an independent country, there wasn't 100% political consensus even within Bangladesh about this separation from Pakistan. Yes, there were almost like 1/3 of the population did not, in fact, welcome the fact that Bangladesh separated from Pakistan. You take the Jamaat, for example, which is an influential force, although they don't win elections, but they are an influential constituency in Bangladesh. They never reconciled to the separation of Bangladesh. There are several other people who may be more inclined as far as the attachment to Islam is concerned, who believe that being an Islamic country is more important than being a Bengali country. So we have to be mindful of the fact that there are various forces at work inside Bangladesh. We should be mindful of that. So this domestic situation, we can do very little to influence those dynamics.
Correct.
So what is the best thing to do? So the position that the government of India originally began with, you remember our foreign secretary paid a visit to Bangladesh. What was the message he gave to the chief advisor? He said that irrespective of whatever may be the political relationship, difficulties that we are having in the political relationship, India will continue with the broad spectrum cooperation that we have always had with Bangladesh, whether it is in supply of power to Bangladesh, whether it is in supply of cooperating, for example, on the river waters, whether it is in terms of giving you access as far as our market is concerned, as far as, for example, transit is concerned, which is very important for Bangladesh. All that, we will not, try to interrupt that. But we would hope that despite whatever political issues that you have with India, you will also see value in continuing this. Now, this is where political issues in Bangladesh have started impacting on some of these, cross-border connections that we have. Now, how do we deal with that? I think we have to keep our head down. We should continue to, be ready to cooperate where the other side is ready to cooperate. But when it comes to defending our interests, particularly our security interests. So you mentioned, for example, you had the trilateral between Bangladesh, China, and Pakistan. What message are you trying to give us? So we have to be mindful of where our interests are being affected, and I don't think anybody should be any doubt that if our interests are being affected adversely in some way, we will of course have to take remedial action. But beyond that, readiness to resume cooperation with Bangladesh when the situation improves, our goodwill for the people of Bangladesh, because we don't have any issue with as regards as the people of Bangladesh are concerned. I think that is what our approach at this point, difficult time, should be.
Just as a quick follow-up question, the elections are going to be held in February. One, do you think they'll take place? Just a quick assessment. Do they think they'll take place? And is it likely to, should they take place, to throw up a democratic establishment? I mean, will they actually follow the democratic process, or it'll simply be the Jamaats taking over?
Well, the fact that they have said that the Awami League cannot take part in these elections tells you that it will not be as democratic as one would hope. Because despite the fact that, the Awami League is, in a sense, has been, put on the margins of the political, system. The fact that there is a concerted effort to try illegitimize in the Awami League. Don't forget that even today, maybe 30% of the population at least is still with them. So if you are saying that the preference of 30% of your population cannot be sort of taken into account, then how is it democratic? Right. So we have to take that into account. By the way, the BNP, which has been the main opposition party, also believes that you should have a competitive political situation. They are not averse to Awami League also taking part in the election, or at least that is the sense that I have been given. Jamaat, I don't know whether it will really make any major gains in the elections, because as I mentioned, if you look at the past, despite the fact that they are supposed to be very influential, they have never,
never won.
managed to get many seats in the Bangladesh
The same in
parliament.
Pakistan too.
So I presume that that will still continue to be a place. But we have seen that irrespective of whether they succeed in elections or not, they do become an influential constituency. Now, for the Jamaat, India is the red flag. Because they hold us responsible for the separation of Bangladesh from Pakistan. They hold us responsible for what they consider secularization of the polity in Bangladesh. So I have no doubt that as we see today, that the Jamaat has acquired considerable amount of influence. Now, if this continues and becomes in a sense institutionalized in some way, that of course is not very good news for India. But we should also not, I think, underestimate the importance of the fact that the connection with India is economically very important for Bangladesh. And I have a hope that many of the sort of, shall I say, interdependencies which have been put in place over the last 15 years or so, those interdependencies will remain strong enough to enable us to overcome this period of some turmoil.
So now I'll move to another country, our neighbor Nepal. And our relations with Nepal have traditionally been very close, especially when we are looking at the nature of family ties which we have had. There's a commonality of religion, of culture, of history, of civilization, a complete compatibility. Yet we have tension, and there's a historical reason to it. Now, as of now, there are again, the problem, internal problems within Nepal tend to get affected. They tend to affect the India-Nepal relationship. How do you see that playing out in the present climate in Nepal, where they have their own political and economic issues, and where China is also becoming a very, very major player?
Number one, I have been ambassador to Nepal, and I think I have some familiarity with
a great deal of
the
familiarity.
Well, maybe not a great deal, but enough familiarity to know that the most important asset that we have with respect to Nepal, which also applies to several other neighboring countries, is the people-to-people relations. Very strong people-to-people relations. You mentioned the fact that, we have these cultural links, you have familial links. And by the way, the familial links are not only the Madhesis and the states of Bihar and UP. There are very strong familial connections even with so-called Pahadi population living in the hills, People think it is only the Madhesis, but it is not. Those are also very strong connections. So, I think the challenge for India has always been, how do I, leverage this very strong people-to-people and cultural affinity that we have between the two countries to also influence in a positive direction the state-to-state relationship. Because if there's a problem, problem is only there. It is not with respect to the people.
It's only the political part.
It is the political part. Now, one, I must say, and this was my own experience, that you have to realize that you are a very large country and you have smaller neighbors around you. It should come as no surprise to you that your smaller neighbors do feel somewhat anxious about the possibility of being dominated by the bigger neighbor. That is natural. We ourselves feel like that when we are faced with a superpower. We try to balance that. So I don't think we should be very prickly about that. We should understand this. What is the implication of that? The implication of that is, how do I have a diplomacy of reassurance with regard to our neighbors? And that applies much more to a country like Nepal. The ability to convey to them that, we have tremendous goodwill for the people of Nepal, and we are willing to be your partners in the economic and social development of the country. Because that is what really matters to the country. Now, two things I would say. with regard to how we do this. Part of the problem that I find we have been facing is that, there is too much of, there are various constituencies in Nepal. Now, if you start saying this is my friend, this is my not my friend, this creates a problem. You must not be seen as taking sides in what is essentially a domestic political dynamic. That is very important. India should not be seen as being part of that. If you are not part of that, you are a much stronger wicket. That is one element. The second element is, don't look at your relationship with Nepal always through the prism of China. If everything you start doing in Nepal is with reference to what you think China are doing, you are going to get into trouble. Trying to match China, in the manner in which China is stretching largest, that is to me a mug's game. Why? Because you should leverage what are your areas of strength, not try to match what are Chinese areas of strength.
That's very
and this
important.
requires careful thinking as to, okay, which are the areas where I have a strong. So if you take just one example, I'll give you. Proximity. Now, China has greater difficulty in accessing Nepal than you should.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Now, why is it that over the last so many years, the Chinese have been hacking through the mountains and creating, roads, or now we are even talking about railway? Why is it then when we have so much, in fact, an asset in terms of the geographical proximity, we have not been able to do that? When I was ambassador in Nepal, I found if you traveled from Nepal into India by road, you would think that I am coming from a relatively developed country to a less developed country, because on our side the roads were so bad. Now, much improvement has taken place in that respect. Much improvement has also taken place in trying to revive, for example, some of the rail connects which used to be there before. We have finally started working on hydroelectric power cooperation between the two countries. So these are good things which are happening. But I think with respect to Nepal, as with respect to some of our other neighboring countries, what should be your overall approach? Your overall approach should be, how do I make India the engine of growth for the entire region?
Yeah.
And you can do it because the very asymmetry of power which you enjoy with respect to your smaller neighbors, which in one sense is a handicap because everybody is scared of you, but that same asset could be utilized for becoming, as I said, the engine of growth for the entire region. Supposing you open your market to everything that your neighbors are able to produce and sell to you, this will still be a small fraction of your market. Why don't you become the transit country of choice, particularly say for Nepal? Why say that no, only this port you can use, no, only this highway you can use? Tell them, okay, whichever, I'll give you national treatment. You utilize any channel for exporting or importing which you want, which is the most convenient to you. So you should pose yourself as the partner of choice for Nepal. That there are so great advantages in actually cooperating with India that why do I need to look elsewhere? Now look at how much difference, for example, just one project has made, which I was talking about when I was in ambassador, which is the pipeline. The Barauni pipeline to Amlekganj. Huge amount of pilferage used to take place when the tankers used to bring them. There would be accidents. Now this is a completely safe supply of gas and petroleum to Nepal. Now those are the kind of very, very thick interdependencies which are of benefit to Nepal or which are benefit to us. So that is the kind of approach that we should adopt. There is still, I am afraid, a sense of some kind of a, outside our borders, something that is hostile there. You have to change your mindset. If you change your mindset, lot more things are possible.
I think that's been very well brought out. Let me get on to the next, a rather contentious issue now, when we're talking of Myanmar. Now, Myanmar has been embroiled in its own problems. There is, ever since the army took over power and the coup took place, and then there's been a struggle for democracy, and we've got various factions there. They're trying to get together, but they're also operating independently. And there is internal, I will say there is civil strife. It is a civil war. Now, that is impacting us. Do you see any change in that situation taking place, or how do you feel India should handle it from here on?
So, one, I think this situation is probably going to linger on for more time, because neither side is really in a position to completely overcome the other side.
As of now, yes.
And secondly, there are powerful external forces which have got involved, in particular China, but not only China, but you also have, say, Thailand, for example, also involved in what is happening. China in particular.
In particular, yes.
So, part of the problem for us is that there is not much that you can do with regard to influencing the course of the civil war there. You are, whether you like it or not, you are in a somewhat defensive position.
No, we are not a player really.
We are not really a player. So, I think sometimes there is prudence in recognizing that you don't have much leverage in this respect. What can you do? I think what is important for India is that we share a 1400-kilometer long border with Myanmar. Some of our most sensitive northeastern states are ranged across this border. We have had a history of insurgency and other kinds of problems. Therefore, ensuring the safety and security of this frontier is very important.
Is the prime concern.
Is prime concern. And this is where I think our focus has to lie. That we can't do very much to influence what is happening there, but I can certainly try to relatively, not entirely, but relatively insulate myself from what is happening on the other side. Now, there will be problems. Why? Because you have the Chins on the other side, you have the Mizos on this side. They have very strong, inter-ethnic connection. You have the Nagas on our side and you have Nagas on the other side. So there are ethnic spillovers across the border. That is a reality. Now, what we have been able to do over the last so many years, not just recently, that those kind of linkages, we have in a sense allowed cross-border connections to continue, because they are important also to the livelihood of people who are living along that border. So, don't interfere too much with that. If it is not affecting your security concerns, there is no need to get excited about it. But what is really worrying for us is whether this situation is opening up the possibility of a greater China influence in a neighboring country than would otherwise be the case. And that, I think, is a danger that we have to be mindful of. Even when I was ambassador in Myanmar, Chinese influence was increasing very rapidly. Part of the reason why we reached out to the military government then, part of the reason why we tried to engage with them much more than we had before. After all, if you remember, we were very much supporting Aung San Suu Kyi and the NLD. Although we did not stop supporting them, but we reached out to the generals. And when I reached out to the generals, I discovered that they were quite,
open about it.
And they were a little worried about their over-dependency on China. So they were ready to increase cooperation with them. So there are opportunities for you. And so maintaining some of the links that we have with the military government, even though it is in a sense in a kind of a siege, I think makes good sense, because it is still the most powerful organized force in Myanmar. So it does not make sense for us to completely stop our engagement with them. So this period of turmoil, this period of uncertainty will continue. But I think as long as we keep focused on, number one, ensuring our security along our very sensitive border, keeping engaged with the major players on the other side, I think generally speaking, we would be remain in a good place.
Now, incident just to on Myanmar as a side note, we had sent one of our distinguished fellows there, and she carried out tremendous research, and everything which you have said actually has been corroborated by her.
I'm glad.
It has actually been corroborated.
Yeah.
Now, I'll move to the one of the smaller island countries. We go to the Maldives, and you are aware as to how the relationship actually deteriorated to a very great deal, and now it is back in track with the Prime Minister visiting. What do you think led to the turnaround, and do you think it's going to continue as far as the Maldives is concerned? The period of bonhomie which we are seeing now.
To the extent that countries are mindful of their larger interests and want to pursue those larger interests, I see no reason why this more positive trend in our relationship cannot continue. I think it will continue. Why do I say that? Now, it is true that you had a very strong, constituency in the Maldives, like we see in some other neighboring countries as well, who do believe that their interests are better served by having a closer relationship with China, by opening out to investment by China, taking large credits or loans from China for developing their infrastructure. And how can you object to that? If a country, whether it's a neighboring country or not, you cannot match China. So if they are turning to China for infrastructure development, there is no way that India can object to that. But see what has happened. Take Maldives as an example. I am familiar somewhat with Maldives because I had a very close relationship with President Nasheed. We were working when he was president for a much stronger economic collaboration between the two countries. Unfortunately, because of the coup, we did not carry through. But so I'm aware of the kind of differences of opinion which are there. There has been a strong constituency which believes that our interests are best served by a much closer relationship with China. Number one, because China can provide assistance for our infrastructure development, which no other country can. Okay, that's true. Secondly, China had become, before COVID, had become the number one source for tourists for the Maldives.
Yes.
That was a huge, foreign exchange earner for Maldives. So there are enough reasons why Maldives thought that moving towards China would be beneficial to the Maldives, and in pursuing that, maybe downgrading somewhat the relationship with India will get us even more benefit. What has happened? So I'll give you two examples. One, the bridge between the main island and the airport island. Major infrastructure project, great utility for the Maldives, cost a lot of money for which credit was given to the Maldives. What is the situation today? Situation is that the toll is so high for crossing the bridge.
Nobody is using it.
Nobody is using it except for tourists.
Okay.
Except for tourists. Common people are still using the ferry because it's so much cheaper. Now, you are not generating enough income to be able to pay back the loan you have taken, plus the interest. So, it is true that infrastructure development is important for every country. But most people forget that infrastructure development must also generate income so that you can pay for it. Merely saying infrastructure development is of no use if it is not able to generate income. So this is what happened with that one project. Similarly, very large project for low-cost housing in the Maldives. Now, that low-cost housing has cost so much that no low-income person is able to afford it. So most of it is lying vacant. So I think both in the Maldives and earlier in Sri Lanka, they became aware of the fact that while it sounds great, to have infrastructure, development assisted by China, this sometimes can even become a bigger burden, financial burden. this is the reality which the new government faced eventually, that
They have to come in.
we are instead of this being a support for our development, it's actually becoming like a millstone round our neck. Five-star hotels are able to get their supplies from Singapore, from Dubai. What about the ordinary people of the Maldives? All the essential supplies come from India at prices which we Indians pay. You take that away and you see what will happen to the cost of living there. So I think, we played also in a sense our cards well. I will compliment the government on that, because they did not rise to the bait.
Yes.
Okay, they played it cool. They did not react by, abusing them in the same manner as they may have been abusing us. And that also played an important role. So the kind of diplomacy that you practice is also important, which enabled them without losing face to, come back to this good relationship with India. So we are in a good place there. And by the way, we are also in a good place in Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka, yes.
So if you are going to ask, then I can
So
respond.
for Sri Lanka, I was saying, the last year the political landscape shifted and we got into a left government. Now, obviously there was some consternation somewhere, what is going to happen, but we found that nothing has happened. You see,
Nothing has
the
happened. In fact, they have proved to be a very good partner.
Now, even with the left front government, it's a very good relationship, and I think that's a very healthy sign.
That's right.
So what do you think has contributed to that? Is it the same as
Just
what happened
one
in the
thing.
Maldives?
Just one thing has contributed, and that is when Sri Lanka was in a deep crisis,
We helped them out.
we helped them out.
That's right.
It is only India which helped out to the extent that really helped the ordinary people of Sri Lanka deal with that crisis. We supplied them rice. We supplied them with fuel. We, with regard to their financial issues, we provided them a soap line. Fertilizers, again from India. So if you look at how we were able to, at a time of deep crisis, come and support Sri Lanka, we were ready to reschedule our loans so that they could get an IMF loan. The Chinese would not give that letter until much later. So I think what is very important is that in public perception in Sri Lanka, they suddenly realized, look, when we were down in the dumps, only one country came and helped us. That has made a huge difference, and I think the new government which has come in is conscious of the fact that there is a change in public perception. And therefore, having a strong relationship with India is actually good in terms of the public.
The public there. Yeah. Right, Ambassador, I'll go to my last two questions now. I don't want to really cover the gamut of India-Pakistan relationship. That I think I personally don't see too much of an improvement taking place, especially after Pahalgam and Op Sindoor. But I want to talk about internally within Pakistan. They've got three sets of problems: the economic problems, their internal security problems, and their political problems. In your view, do you think there will ever be, at least in the foreseeable future, will the politics be able to keep control over their military, or is the military destined to rule at least for the next few decades, if nothing else?
So I think, uncomfortable as it may be, you have to accept the fact that the only organized disciplined force in Pakistan is the army.
Is the army. Yeah.
So whenever there has been crisis, or wherever there has been some kind of very, big unrest in the country, the fallback has always been the armed forces. That has not changed, by the way. So if you are looking at some future situation where the army is no longer influential, I am afraid that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Also be mindful of the fact that the only time that we have been able to, relatively speaking, improve relations between India and Pakistan has been when the army has been controlled, and the army there thinks that improving relations with India is in their interest. Okay. So this is a reality. Now, the third thing which we also forget is that the desire to be seen on a same level as India, parity with India, That is something which is very deeply ingrained in Pakistan. I wrote in one of my op-eds, if you do 5 tests, I will do 6. Right? You know, there is always this sense that I have to be one up to show that I'm better than you. You know, the old thing about one Pakistani soldier is equal to 10 Indian soldiers. You know, that kind of psychology we should understand. You may laugh at it, but it's very deeply ingrained. Therefore, you have to deal with that kind of situation. Having said that, the one thing that maybe my view is a little different from what we are trying to do right now is that I have always felt that it is important, even when it is very difficult, to keep some engagement, some dialogue with Pakistan going. Because at least if nothing else, it gives you an insight into their thinking.
What they're thinking.
You know, it gives you some warning signal if things are going in the wrong direction. Right now, it is like a black box, and that's not good. So, as you say, there are a lot of, you know, internal developments, internal dynamics that are taking place. Part of the problem we have is how much knowledge is there in India today about what is happening inside Pakistan?
Yes.
What is its economy doing? How vulnerable is this economy? What are the strengths that this economy has? What are the sources of the resilience that, whether you like it or not, still seems to be there? So, unless you know your adversary, unless you know how he is thinking, it is very difficult to come up with a counter strategy. So, my view is safeguard your interests with respect, keep your powder dry, but engagement you must have. Even in the worst times of the Cold War, if you remember, the Soviet Union and the US were still talking to each other.
They engaged.
Yeah. So that is something, just as a professional diplomat, I would say this is very important. But we are in a difficult situation today, mainly because of what has happened with the US. This is a new situation, and this is a more dangerous situation. Why do I say it is a dangerous situation? Look at the kind of statement which the army chief has made in Florida.
Yesterday, yes.
You know, may get this thought that, you know, this may be a good time to provoke the Indians. Because I am protected by both by China and now even with the US.
And by the United States.
So, you are in a vulnerable situation, and I hope that we are conscious of the fact that something like this could be in the mind of this man.
Right, Ambassador, I've kept China really for the last, and very briefly, because China has also got a range of internal problems. You should let us be mindful of the fact they may be, you know, trying to compete with the United States for the #1 slot, but they have their own problems. You know, economic slowdown is there. They have got demographic pressures, and tightening political control. Now, how are these shaping Beijing's policies and approach? One with the United States specifically, and with India, in your view?
So, you are quite right that there are serious internal problems in China. One is still the ongoing impact of the property crisis. Don't forget that 30% of the Chinese economy and much of the driver of its growth over the last 40 years was property.
Property.
It's all real estate.
Yes.
You know. Now, when that has collapsed, everything built around the property sector has also collapsed. Demand for glass, demand for, you know, the aluminium which you need for windows, tiles which you need for floors, all those have also collapsed. That is one. Second is, because bank deposit the rates have been so low, the only two other places where you can make some money is either the stock market or real estate. Because real estate was going up and up and up, it was the best form of saving that you could think of. Yes. Okay. Now, when the property sector has collapsed, all that source of savings, you know, has also collapsed. So, demand is not picking up. Despite all effort being made, consumption has remained almost flat. So, there are serious problems, and the trade war will also cause serious problems. But I think what you in terms of politics, if he has been under pressure, what he's telling his people is, see, if you don't have a strong leader here, how can you deal with this man there?
Yes,
you know, that very
comes out.
uncertainty is actually strengthening his hands. So when I was in Beijing recently, when I had gone for a conference, this is the message which I asked my Chinese friends, you know, how is it that, you know, this doesn't seem to be affecting the politics in this country? And say, well, his hands have been strengthened because of what is happening. So, as far as the external picture is concerned, the Chinese have been, whether we like it or not, been able to say, compared to that, see, we have stability. Compared to the unpredictability there, see, we are a stable country. Look at, they are, you know, reordering the entire trading system. We believe in free trade. We believe in, you know, rule-based order. So they are posing themselves as everything that the US is not. And don't underestimate the attraction that has for a large number of countries.
No, it does happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have to be mindful of that. The China challenge is not going away for India. You may be able to make some tactical adjustments. And I think, you know, PM going to the BRICS
is one of
summit,
them.
for example, or sorry, the SCO summit.
The SCO summit.
I think it's a good thing that he is going and re-establishing, you know, relationship at the leadership level, or that we keep our relationship with Russia in good order. That is also good. But we should also be thinking in terms of how we can, you know, diversify our relationships much more than we have been able to do. Yes. My sense is we have put too much emphasis on our relationship with the West. And we have forgotten how valuable it is to have the strong sort of constituency of developing countries behind us. You know, very good, I'm getting a seat at the high table, but never the seat at the high table by forgetting these linkages, because ultimately this is more important for you.
Yes.
You know, so if whatever crisis we are going through enables us to make that little shift in the manner in which we engage with the world, I certainly think it would be to our advantage.
Thank you, Ambassador. Leaving aside everything else, I have been educated. Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much.